remember driving and like kind of swerving across the road because nobody else was on these roads, and just like celebrating, crying, grieving out a little bit because I had something of purpose now to work for me, because it's really hard when you lose everything and you don't know where to go and what to do, because when she passed, my entire future was wiped clean. And now she was a force on the other side to help encourage me, but I still had to find something for me to devote my passion and my intention and love into. And so I had this thing. So it was like kind of a bit of an awakening of my passion and my purpose to be able to do this.
Welcome to the Angels and Awakening podcast, where we connect you with your angels, loved ones, and soul self. I'm your host and author, Julie Jancius. My journey began when I started hearing my late father before I knew he'd passed. Through my readings, membership, and Angel Reiki School, I help you awaken, heal, and master your unique spiritual gifts. If you feel called to work with me, it's your angels guiding you to discover your soul's highest purpose. Details at theangelmedium.com. Thank you, Earth Angels, for the 5-star reviews. You're entered into a drawing to win a free session. Now let's see what messages your angels have for you today. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the Angels and Awakening podcast. I'm your host and author, Julie Jancius. And friends, today we have Joe Hehn here with a beautiful angel story to share. He's also a public speaker, right, Joe?
Yeah, public speaker, and then mindset coach and corporate consultant and author as well. So I have a great book out there too. So a lot of things. We all have to wear all those hats these days, you know.
For sure, for sure. Well, I wish we were here under better circumstances. Unfortunately, you had a situation where I'm just going to let you take it away and tell the story, but your
Sure.
wife is on the other side and she has come through to you. And I think it's just so powerful to hear this story. So I'm going to let you take it away and share this.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so we met in 2003. We had a great kind of whirlwind relationship. We're together for a long time. We were both bartenders in Chicago, and so just had a lot of excitement and a lot of time to kind of grow together. And then we got married in Costa Rica in 2011. It was like just a beautiful dream wedding on top of a mountain and hawks circling around overlooking the ocean. It was epic. But not shortly after that, 2012, she found a lump in her neck, and things just kind of were pretty nice and normal and routine. You know, the corporate gig, good social circle, and then just took a deep dive into, well, now this is very, very important. And then it turned out being even more important because she was diagnosed with stage 3B or 4 cancer, and it was lung cancer. And so we kind of hit the ground running, trying to find treatment options that weren't the traditional kind, because we owned a holistic health company back in Chicago. So we went through all that. We found something amazing. We're traveling around the country looking for stuff, moved back to Chicago, and then the treatment worked. And I think about a year and a half later, she was declared that she was in remission. So we were just ecstatic, like anybody would be, and then started picking up the pace of getting back into normalcy. But not too long after that, she got sick. And so we just thought it was food poisoning or something. I had to kind of climb the corporate ladder. Things were doing well with our health and wellness business and my profession. And so we were just like, oh, it's probably nothing. And then they did a CAT scan and they found dozens of tumors in her brain. The medicine didn't work, and it didn't break the blood-brain barrier. So the cancer went to where it could thrive. And then from there, it was all hands on deck. We had to move in with my folks after she had life-saving brain surgery, you know, ambulance rushed to the hospital. And then it was 10 months of being a caretaker and picking her up, feeding her and bathing her. And she would have really good days and weeks and really, really bad days and weeks. We were going to the ER, and I was living out of the hospital at sometimes. But I'm bringing this up because it was, you know, looking back, I understand that the importance of this is that like all our surface grievances as a couple were incinerated. Like, so you're getting down to the depth of like a really soulful love because you're facing mortality and death. And before any of this happened, I thought death was the end, and she did too. You know, you're raised in those social constructs and everything. And so it was terrifying, and I would have to suffer through all that anxiety, but in front of her, be that bold, courageous husband and caretaker. And so I never really thought she was going to die. I just thought this is a really horrible situation and we're going to get through it, but it was terrifying. And then eventually we had to take her to the ER one final time. And 3 days later, after she was induced into a coma, the doctor just looks at me and says, she's not in there anymore. And that led to the movie scene that most of us have seen and witnessed and sometimes experienced, where the stark white sheets, the beeping monitors, the dim lighting, the people encircling the hospital bed. And I took many, many hours to prepare myself and say goodbye because I had to make that conscious choice to take her off life support. It was one of the most difficult things anybody could ever do, is saying goodbye to your best friend and your lover. So we went through that, and eventually she passed. And so my parents and I were in the car driving home, and I was sitting in the back. They had a minivan. It was like old school, being a little kid again. I'm all the way in the back, and I'm like, what time did she pass? And my dad goes, 3:25. I go, really? 3:25? And he goes, yeah. I go, that's odd. That's our wedding anniversary.
Wow.
And that was the first sign of like something's amiss, like something's not exactly what it is. The first kind of synchronicity, as I came later to find out. And from there, I went home, and it was just a gauntlet of grief because you lose this loved one and everything she is to you, and a wife and best friend and business partner, but you lose being all these things to her and in your life. So my identity was just like kind of taken from me, the bulk of my identity. So you're kind of grieving on in a double fold here. But I wasn't alone. So Jess had her phone there. You don't like just disconnect the phone. All the things take time to prepare and everything. And so a few days after preparing for the arrangements for the celebration of life, and I would get text messages or calls, either checking up on me through her phone or her, because not everybody knew she had passed, friends in other countries. And that was the case. A friend reached out. Her name was Tanya, and she's like, hey, Jess, honey, just thinking about you a lot, just checking in on you. So I had to say, hey, unfortunately, Jess passed a few days ago. And Tanya goes, this is going to sound very strange, but I'm actually a spiritual medium and a psychic, and I'm friends with Jess. We work together a little bit, and I believe she's coming to me to speak to you. So my male analytical mind is kind of like, what do you want, lady? What's the scam here? But my grieving heart was like, give me everything, right? Like, tell me what's going on here. So she started opening up and sharing things that only Jess and I really knew, and confirmed like multiple things. And so I was just kind of like, whoa, this is wild. And then she said, well, the first thing Jessica wants you to do is to write a book to tell a story. And that made absolutely no sense to me. But she said the next thing that she wants you to do is read a book. And it's called The Afterlife of Billy Fingers. And I'm sure a lot of the people listening to this podcast are probably familiar with it. And so if not, it just quick little recap. It's about a brother and a sister, and the brother has a very hard life, but he ends up passing away, and he's able to communicate with the sister, kind of guiding her through her own life while also expanding upon what happens in the afterlife. So I'm reading this 4 days after while preparing for the celebration of life. That goes through. I'm still reading the book. I quit my corporate job. I kind of quit my life in Chicago, and I decided I was going to go travel the world and volunteer and try to help and soul search and just kind of figure stuff out. And so I was preparing for that, reading that book. All the while, Jessica's coming to me in dreams. Other people would reach out and say, I had a dream of Jess, and she just wanted me to come to you and say, I love you. And she was doing these kinds of things on a regular basis. And for me, these synchronicities started happening where I would hear our wedding song when I was like grieving really bad, like walking on a beach one day, and the wedding song would be playing, and a lot of spiritual animals that would come, butterflies especially, were the first cue for many, many months. So I eventually started traveling the world, volunteering in South America, teaching children self-defense and English and martial arts, and helping women defend themselves against their drunken husbands, and volunteering at burn units in Bolivia for children's hospitals.
Friends, here's a list of our free and paid upcoming events. Black Friday sales start now. You can join my membership or Angel Reiki School at the best price of the year, plus get special bonuses that are only available now. Join my live Deepening Your Connection with Your Loved Ones on the Other Side course starting December 1st. This is free for members with limited paid spots for non-members. Free workshop November 27th at 8 p.m. Central on how to hear your loved ones in heaven. And join our free prayer meeting right before that at 7 p.m. Central. Sign up for all of this and more at theangelmedium.com/events.
So I was doing this crazy epic adventure, taking buses, staying at hostels, going all the way through South America. I was kind of losing myself. I was getting sick because I was giving so much and I was not taking time to grieve. But she was with me doing these kinds of signs. Like we would hike up a mountain that was totally barren of anything whatsoever. And then all of a sudden, I'd get to the top, and then butterflies would start swarming around me, like multiple ones. And my buddy was there with me. He's like, we're both like, we know what this is, you know? And so it was this constant force, and other people reaching out who had also medium experiences and be like, I was at a group circle in Illinois while you were in South America, and Jess came through the medium, interrupted the entire circle of 12 people there to talk to their loved ones for 20 minutes, trying to get the message to Joe that you have to get this to him. So just like really wild, all this stuff that's happening. But the dreams were something really remarkable, where she would give exact advice on how to navigate certain areas of my life. And it would be through, the messages of dreams aren't always clear, but when you take a step back, you're like, oh my gosh, this is the answer that I needed. And so she was coming through there and guiding me the entire time because I was in just such a horrible state of grief still. I ended up in Bolivia getting very, very sick. And I kind of got to the point where I was having the very bad thoughts of like, I don't want to live anymore. I don't want to kill myself. I don't know if I want to die, but I don't want to live. And I knew that an abrupt shift in my reality was necessary. And so I went back home to Chicago. I kind of felt like I failed. I didn't tell a lot of people that I had been traveling for like 3-4 months. And I'm walking down the street in Chicago and I say, I'm going to move to Costa Rica. I'm going to move there and I'm going to focus on my own healing and not be traveling around. Like get rid of all of the planes, trains, and automobiles and focus on like figuring some stuff out. And so I'm walking down the street in Chicago and it's December. Anybody's been in Chicago in December, the wind is whipping by. It's 9 degrees out and I felt like my ears were going to be ripped off my head. But I'm moving to Costa Rica. All my stuff is in storage. So I was like, I'm not going to go get earmuffs. I'm just going to bear this. So I had to walk a few blocks to meet a friend for lunch. I'm holding onto my ears like, earmuffs. My fingers are getting cold. I finally show up. And then Tanya, the medium, who's been guiding me this whole entire time, giving messages from Jess, like, this is what she says, this is what to do, all this. She goes, Jessica told me to tell you to cover your ears. And Tanya was living in Spain at the time. She didn't even know I was home, nothing going on. And so I love that because people think of people being in the beyond and you're getting these big, like profound, epic spiritual kind of nudges and encouragement. But sometimes it's just like a wife looking after a husband saying, hey, baby, don't forget your coat or your earmuffs. It's as simple as that. And the connection is that strong that they're there with even the little nuances. So it was really, really remarkable. But I ended up moving to Costa Rica and I did a lot of healing there, gorging on spiritual books and religious books and understanding the power of my mind and perspective, recognizing the attachment of grief and just slowly working on myself physically to get very, very fit and healthy so I can focus on my mind and my spiritual growth. And I decided to drive from Costa Rica to Chicago in an old Land Rover. Everybody thought I was nuts, but it was this epic adventure that I wanted to take. And I knew it was something I was meant to do. So on that quest, met a lot of friends, a lot of adventures, a lot of troubles, all navigated perfectly fine and healthy, but I discovered the book Many Lives, Many Masters. It was recommended to me. So then I devoured that book and was really into this whole subconscious understanding of our past lives saved within that subconscious state. And so I eventually made it back to Chicago. Well, I was actually going through Mexico, had some tricky times there because my truck was a safari truck, so it would break down literally every single day, and I would just drive to town, get it fixed, fix it myself, and then keep driving. It was not recommended, but it was a really epic adventure. Upon that journey in Mexico on the coast, I was sitting there one morning waiting for the rains to subside, and I was reading about like the history of the world, and I was, just being a part of this, and I was going from these countries to countries, like living these different lives, and then I just thought of it in the morning, dreams of antiquity. And I thought of the first chapter and the last chapter of a novel, of a story about somebody else based on my story. But I didn't have anything from that, but it was my aha, epiphany, eureka moment. I remember driving and like kind of swerving across the road because nobody else was on these roads, and just like celebrating, crying, grieving out a little bit because I had something of purpose now to work for me, because it's really hard when you lose everything and you don't know where to go and what to do, because when she passed, my entire future was wiped clean. And now she was a force on the other side to help encourage me, but I still had to find something for me to devote my passion and my intention and love into. And so I had this thing. So it was like kind of a bit of an awakening of my passion and my purpose to be able to do this. So I eventually made it to Chicago, and then I came across another book called Journey of Souls. And that's where it dives into, I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with that, but dives into really structuring the beyond through Michael Newton, working with clients and going through their subconscious lives and also the life between lives, he calls it. And so that was fascinating to me. So I found a person who does a past life regression, and she was in Des Plaines outside of Chicago. And I set up the appointment, and she asked me, she's like, "What are you here for?" And I was doing a lot of meditation, transcendental meditation at the time, preparing just for my own sake, but knowing that this was going to help out my journey. And she goes, "What are you here for?" And I go, "I just want to know if my late wife and I had a past life together." That was it. And holy roller coaster, like buckle up. I went into this session and she walks you through it. And basically I cross that bridge. I take a first step. You look down at your feet, and I've got these little brown feet, and I've got this long black hair. And I thought I was a little like Native American girl. I was just a Native American boy, but with long black hair. So I go through this entire journey of living this Native American life, and it was very, very hard. One of the memories, you can kind of like, I don't know if anybody are familiar with it, but you can kind of fast forward through the life, and it's like a Claritin commercial where there's that screen, that veil, and then you pull back that plastic, and then things become clear to you. That's kind of how I describe it. And so that's happening. The guide there, the past life regressionist, is like, fast forward to a significant event. And I remember like clutching at my mom's leg and watching this man hang from a noose. And I could hear the creak of the noose, and that man was my father. And he had been murdered because we were all being kind of like evicted from the lands and chased out, and the kind of genocide. And so we were suffering through a very, very hard life. It was like the Trail of Tears kind of stuff. It just a lot of battles and violence. And I remember being so hateful and angry. And while I'm experiencing this past life regression, I'm questioning whether I am live creating this from my consciousness to somehow like absolve myself from grief, to tell myself this fantasy so that it could kind of dilute the significance of grief. And so I'm questioning if this is really happening or just a fabrication of my mind. But there's things that would happen that would justify that I am not able to make this up. Like the emotions that I would feel from being that Native American were instantaneous reflections of what that man was experiencing. And it wasn't like if you try to fabricate emotion, I teach visualization and manifestation and all this stuff. It's hard to drum that up. It takes, like a little bit of a crescendo within yourself, visualizing, holding on to this importance. And it was just like the light turned on, and you're loathing life, and it's so unfair and so cruel. But also, like when she wouldn't say fast forward and stuff, I was there like one time whittling a stick, like with a blade, right? And I'm just like making kindling or doing something, and I'm just sitting there, and she's like, "What's going on now?" And I'm like, I don't know. I've just got this blade and I'm like whittling away on this piece of wood. And she's like, okay, let's move to another future significant event. And so for me, it was really interesting because I was seeing that I don't think I would have done that. I would have included like the montage of like awesome things, but I wouldn't have thought to do the little downtime of like going to the bathroom or whittling, but it shows that life is just that magical and divine. Every single moment is captured by the soul, and every single moment is an opportunity for lessons and experience and etc. But basically, I make my way through that life, and I'm finally show up, and we all are coming together as Native Americans. And I go into this tent, and a lot of time has passed, and I look up, and there is my wife, the Native American, and Jessica's face is kind of imprinted almost like over it, like almost like you could see the soul underneath the skin, and you see the face that I knew her as Jessica Marie from this life.
Friends, I just want to thank you for sharing each episode with your friends. Because of you, we've hit nearly 10 million downloads a year. Wow. As a thank you and gift, please enjoy my free 31-day angel success formula at theangelmedium.com so you can start connecting with your angels today. And please share today's episode if you've enjoyed it and tag me at Angel Podcast.
And so it was just like, oh my God, that's Jess. Like, she's my wife in this life, and we have two children together. And not only that, my mom from this life was like my great grandmother. She was like this toothless Native American, and she was holding one of the kids and just like sitting in the corner rocking. And I was like, my gosh, my mom is in this life with me. And then we fast forward, and I go to this big kind of feast, and we're preparing to figure out what we're going to do because we're really being pressured into like a horrible space, and somebody throws like a chicken bone or something at me in this past life regression. I look over, and it's one of my best friends from this life, like kind of messing with you like guys do, at the feast. And it was the guy I traveled through with South America, and it just showed like, oh my gosh, it's not just Jess. Like, there are multiple people in this life that like we've been through this before, and I'm just seeing this one life. So I go through, we have this feast where we go and lay down around this fire, and the kids are there. I'm laying on Jessica's lap, and we're all just laying around looking at the stars, beautiful fire. A lot of the community is out there too, and I fall asleep. And then this is where it got more weird. I can't say weird because it already was so weird to me, but I transformed my perspective into somebody else's, and I was this man stalking through the woods with like a gun, and I was making my way, and I was coming onto the clearing that with the fire and the Native Americans sitting around the fire. So it just jumped to that, and I think it just, for some reason, spirit was like, you need to get this perspective so you understand what exactly happened. And then I jumped back to myself as a Native American, and I remember feeling that presence, like something's not right. And then I looked over to the tree line, and I felt like I saw something move. And I look back to Jess because everybody else is kind of stirring now. And I just look at her, and I go, run. And it was just so like soul stirring, like I still get shivers. And I grabbed my tomahawk, and I started hauling ass, pardon my French, toward that tree line. And then a man steps out of the tree line, out of the woods, aiming the rifle up. And I throw my tomahawk, and I take him out. And then I arrive to where he is, retrieve my tomahawk, and I look back, and Jessica's got one child in her arm, and she's fleeing with the other child in hand behind, and she is running. And then I turn back to look back at the tree line, and I feel this opening of my head, like an openness and expansiveness, and all of a sudden I'm just floating above my body, and it's going fast, like the fastest elevator you've been in times 10. And I remember in the past life regression, I was like, well, no, 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 wait, hold on, like, wait, like kind of, I wanted to hit the pause button, but then it just took me up. And then it went right into me being like almost, I describe it as like a cloud-like presence floating over Jess. And then I got this like almost time lapse view of her life. She was so entombed by grief. And I knew that empathetically what that felt like because I'm living this life so entombed by grief. And she had the kids and they're doing like the Trail of Tears walk, like they're all walking in a line, like having to migrate somewhere safe. And I was able to like pour messages and signs and synchronicities as this force, this like conscious force looking down on her. And there was other Native Americans and spirits looking down over their loved ones, and we were able to kind of just pour love and guidance and direction and at least be there. And it all happened very fast, and you're trying to make sense of it with your analytical earth mind here, but it felt like we had the power to influence their journey for the better, to improve, to guide, if their hearts, if their minds were open to that reception. Kind of like, we're sending a satellite connection, and you need to have that satellite in order to receive it. And that is by just understanding that maybe death is not the end. And then that is your signal opening up. And so flash forward through Jessica's life, and she got better, and time went by, and for some reason it felt like 8 years had gone by, and she was like gardening outside, and she was smiling, and the kids were older and running around, and I knew like she's going to be okay. I was with her this whole time, and she's going to be okay. And then bam, all of a sudden I'm on a ship, and I've got a ledger, and I'm like wearing one of those like white wigs, and I'm going in and taking inventory and something, and I'm walking down the ship. They're like, I could feel the boot stomps on the deck, and I go to the person doing the past life regressionist, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm on a ship now, and I'm like taking inventory, and she's like, well, that's all the time we have right now, because it had been 2.5 hours. So I walked out of that room, and I felt like I took 12 steps up out of my grief, because I recognized that this is merely a chapter in a very long book. And I then ran home, and I had been, studying meditation and all this religious stuff and everything. And so I reconditioned myself to go through the exact same steps that the past life regressionist had guided me through. And I started seeing one life after the next, after the next, after the next, just sitting there for 3 days, meditating, eating, and going through the different lessons and lives, going all the way back and all through. And Jessica was my soulmate in a lot of these lives. So I'm sitting there in that space doing this, and other friends, and I go, can I see the future of this life? Like, what am I able to see here, right? And so then I'm born into this life, and I fast forward and into the future. And I'm speaking on stage, and I'm signing books, and I'm speaking to big audiences, and I don't know what I'm speaking about, but I'm there and I'm speaking and I'm confident and I'm doing all that. And then I've got a new wife. Her face was veiled and her hair was long, and we had 2 children running around together, and we're sitting in my parents' driveway. And so I see this future, and I just kind of go, oh my gosh, like this could be my future, and it looks pretty amazing. But it was so like, I'm not ready for any of this. I don't know what it means. The stage, the woman, no, I was still very early in my grief. And so I continued doing that, is traveling around and just studying spiritual stuff. Like I went to study in Nepal and Tibet and trekking the Himalayas and studying Buddhism, and going to China and studying Confucianism and Taoism in India, and self-realization in Hinduism and Sufism in the Middle East, etc. And I'm making my way through the world doing these epic trips, feeling like I'm living lives in each of these cultures, and taking from the face, and meeting friends and having these epic realizations. And Jessica was with me every step of the way. And she would come and move things in my life, turn a TV on or off, or a light switch. Or the most significant things I think I would know consciously is that I remember being at like a buddy's wedding. I remember just feeling like so alone without her, and you're celebrating love and union and everything. At certain times, I felt her come behind me and embrace me. I would put my hand on my chest and almost like we're holding hands, and I'd feel the vibration of energy just ripple over me, and you feel like this presence. And so she guided me through all these experiences, and I eventually moved out to California. I got a job because I was running out of money, traveling and everything, kind of pissing away my savings because who cares? And eventually started working, and I would still take these big trips and do these things. I started coaching other people on what I was experiencing, people who lost a loved one, and then just people who suffered in general. but then I wanted love. So you're kind of almost like making sure it's okay with her and checking in. And I learned all about law of attraction and manifestation. I started incorporating that because I was very like Zen Buddhist mind and very just kind of non-attachment to life. So I started using the principles of law of attraction, and I did very well in my business and transformed something very, very quickly into a lot of abundance. And I was like, wow, this stuff works, because you're not sure. And then I started saying, like, can I do that for love? And I started dating, and it's kind of funny. I was a bartender in Chicago. I just had to kind of like smirk and give somebody a drink if I wanted to hit on them. And now it's online dating and Bumble and all this stuff. And you're just like, this is a crazy, you're shopping for love. So very, very fun and humbling experience, but you're learning, you're growing, getting confident, being who you are, knowing your value, going on a date and being like, yeah, I'm writing a novel about my late wife and my whole entire spiritual journey. And I own that. And if you're comfortable with it, cool. If not, I understand. And so just kind of going through the motions. And then I walked into a dental office one day and I saw this beautiful woman and I said, oh, wow. And the only time I had ever said that and felt that was when I saw Jess coming down the aisle of this beautiful white staircase during our wedding, because it was soul stirring. I was like futzing with the ring, trying to get the ring off the pill, and I look up and she's just there, like she just appeared. And so I walk into that dental office to experience that same thing. And so then I got that girl's number. I was friends with her boss. That's a fun, awkward experience, by the way. And so then she says yes. Finally, she said no at first, and then we start talking. We talk for a few weeks. It's like around my 40th birthday. Jess had passed probably 6 years prior, 6.5 years prior. So I've been doing this for a while and like really growing and grieving a lot of time. And so her name is Susie. And so then I talked to Susie and we met. And she came out to San Diego to spend some time to see if we were compatible in person and see if this affection and attraction we were feeling was real. And I have this tattoo. I don't know if you can see it here that I got with Jess. It was my very first one. And I meet Susie and she's got this same tattoo on her rib cage.
Wow.
Basically verbatim size, compass, everything. And it's a compass. And instead of saying north, east, south, west, and everything, it says love at the top and knowledge and
Mm.
spirituality and wisdom. But she had the very same compass with her own kind of interpretation, but we put them next to each other and took a picture because it was just such a crazy synchronicity where it's like there's something here. And we eventually got pregnant. We lost that baby, and you're kind of trying to figure out like, man, this is a lot of life happening. She's recovering from this crazy narcissistic relationship. She had to flee and get a restraining order. So she had her baggage. I'm a widower. I have my baggage. But we're coming together and knowing we have this soulful love here. And then I felt like she was guided into my life. And so I went back into that life, that visualization. I was kind of rusty at that point, but trying to access that subconscious life that is the future of this life as Joe Hehn. And I go back into that, and that woman sitting next to me in my parents' driveway with the two kids, the veil was pulled down, and it was Susie's face. And so, like, things like that were granted to me. And it's like you already felt that, but eventually we carried on living our lives, and I was able to move in with my parents for a little bit. My father was sick and going through hospice, and I was able to help him with his transition. He was a Vietnam vet, didn't have any understanding of life and death, was terrified of passing, and I was able to speak about everything I've known because Jess taught me all this stuff and the books and the revelations and the guidance. And so with the many weeks we had together, I got him into a space of peace and accepting death, which was like one of the best gifts you can give your parents, your father. And eventually dad passed away, and we bought a house out there, remodeled a house, and then we had a baby, little Oliver Holden, in January of 2022. And then that year I released the book Dreams of Antiquity, The Awakening. And it's about a Babylonian king and queen, Gracian and Iadana, very much in love, soulful union, and the queen gets sick and she passes away. But the king has to go live on without her and can't. And he succumbs to his grief and he passes away. But then he reincarnates in another life. And he can remember his past life with the queen, and he is this soul in a new body, in a new circumstance, aboriginal, new faith, new everything. And then he succumbs to that life after learning some lessons, after kind of growing through some experience. Then he reincarnates as a Egyptian orphan, and then a Nepalese shepherd, and then a Chinese martial artist. And so his soul is going through these lives, reflection of what I've learned, what I've come to know and realize, and his wife is guiding him all the while. The queen from Babylon is there in his dreams, giving him the understanding, the guidance as his soul evolves through these multiple incarnations. And so it's very much a reflection of what I've come to know, but also my travel around the world, understanding these cultures. So when, learning from Buddhism and Taoism and everything from the different cultures. But so Dreams of Antiquity, it's going to be a series. The first book is out now, and I'm actually kind of editing the first one to do a second edition. There was some masterful idea that I just thought of meditating, so I'm incorporating that. But it's really a profound, beautiful, epic, loving, emotional story about loss and grief, but about the soul's evolution, and it's a reflection of my journey. So.
There's so many different ways I want to go. Joe, we have a Thursday episode and a Monday episode. Would you be willing to come back and talk more in depth? I could ask you some questions about your travels and we could go
Yeah,
even deeper with the audience.
yeah, absolutely. And like I'm a mindset coach, spiritual teacher, and again, like consultant and everything. So I do this where I'm able to sprinkle in a lot of like what I've learned through my teachings and studies, but mix it kind of very well with modern day spirituality. So I'd be happy to do that. That's my passion and
Yeah.
my purpose these days. So yeah, that would be wonderful.
Oh, that's fabulous. I keep asking Jess on the other side if she has any messages, and her and your dad are right there. And they keep saying that in addition to kind of like the work that you're doing, we're all on this evolutionary
Hmm.
process, right? Where we're just going to
Hmm.
keep going and keep going. I keep seeing there be some idea that comes through that's like a product. It's not the books, it's like selling this product. But she says it's a really good idea. It's not like something that you've really done before. I feel like it's almost like a new
This
creative
is
idea.
so
But
wild. I just had
um,
an idea 2 days ago
oh,
that I
stop.
told Susie, swear to God, and I just told her yesterday the whole thing, and I just took notes on it. It happened 2 days ago, and I said, this is $1 billion idea. I can't
It
share it with
is.
you, but I'm like really excited about it, and it's just like, it's something to help the entire world with
Yeah.
their own stresses and anxieties, and people can do it, and it's an amazing idea. So that's awesome that I'm hearing that, and I love that she's still there and still in tune. And
Yeah.
it's an app, but it's everybody's doing apps and everything else, but it's just wild. So that the way that you were phrasing it, you're like it's kind of like a product, and so
Yeah.
it's not, the way you were describing it, just so on point. So I love that.
Yay.
That was so
It's
cool.
supposed to happen because it's supposed to provide. I work with CEOs and presidents and,
Oh,
just corporate
wonderful.
leaders all the time. So I can tell you it's supposed to come in as like a permanent revenue stream that's going to bring in just an abundance of finances in order for you to feel comfortable stepping into something else where you can kind of give more of your time and reach more people. But
Okay.
uh, yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome. Thank you. That's very, very helpful. But yeah,
Oh,
that was
good.
beautiful.
Well,
Yeah, that's super
Joe, thank
cool.
you for being here.
Thank
Share with
you.
everybody where they can find you, and we're going to have you back because I have so many questions.
Yeah, that would be awesome. So, like most people, website, I have a YouTube channel, but the website, you can kind of access that stuff. Dreams of Antiquity, my book, it's on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles, but my website is www.joe-hehn, Hehn.com. And Dreams of Antiquity, you can search on Amazon or Kindle, Walmart, and Barnes and Nobles. And then I do coaching, and I'm working with bigger companies, eBay, Salesforce, Great Construction, about doing kind of bringing in the healthy mindset. I call it the higher perspective. So bringing that into teams to help them not only achieve better performance, but have a much richer quality of experience, reducing anxiety and stress, and kind of having a spiritual experience at work. So that's kind of the big thing I'm doing a lot now. And if people are interested, they can find all the information on my website.
Beautiful. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Joe, and I can't wait to have you back. I hope
Thank you
your
so much.
kiddo has a beautiful day at school
Yeah, I
today.
do. Yeah. Everybody out there, my little boy is not loving school, so just say a little prayer that he gains some confidence and some courage. We're doing good. But Julie, thank God we had to push up the meeting a little bit so I could go take my boy to school. So,
I think
you
that's a
know.
beautiful thing. Thank you, Joe. We're going to
Thank
be
you for
praying
having
for
me,
him.
guys.
You
All
too.
right.
If you feel called to become a certified angel messenger, energy healer, and medium, join my Angel Reiki school to learn all three at once. I'll also give you my secret sauce for building a successful, sustainable spiritual business. We're in person November 2024 and April 2025, or start the Angel Reiki school online on the first of the month. For personal messages from your spirit team, book a one-on-one reading with me. New slots are released monthly via email. Join my membership to grow spiritually, heal deeply, and connect with your angels for daily guidance and support on your personal journey. Visit theangelmedium.com/contact. Have an angel story? Share it at theangelmedium.com/contact to inspire our community with hope and love. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you back here Monday with a brand new episode.